436-1212. That's the number to call if you've got a legal question to be answered by Charley O'Hara, our lawyer in the studio this morning on Eyewitness News this morning. We already have one caller on the line with a question, so caller, if you're there, go ahead now with your question for Charley.
I was wondering if you know anything about estate planning. I've heard that if you leave your house in joint tenancy, that a person has to have the permanent residence for 6 months before you can sell the house, or it has to go through probate court. Or I've also heard you can leave it transferred in death. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do something like that, number one, I do know a little bit about it. That's not really what I do. But I think you need some legal advice whenever you're going to do something like that, because you have some questions about when you can transfer it after you get it and things like that. Most houses are usually left, at least to the spouse, in joint tenancy with the right of survivorship, meaning that if one spouse dies, the other spouse will own the home. But if you're really going to ask a question about transferring something that's of value, I really think it'd be worth it to go look to a lawyer and talk to them. It won't cost you very much, and you can do it pretty shortly, and they can give you some good advice on what to do. That's probably the best thing to do if you have questions like that.
And it seems like, too, that'd be an issue if you're creating a will as well, that, like, usually people would leave property in a will to somebody, right?
It is, but what you really need to do is you need to talk to an attorney, because you don't know all the aspects of what you're really doing. And everybody thinks they do, and they think they know how to do it, but it's always best to have somebody that does that for a living kind of tell you, well, you ought to do this and you ought to do that, so you know what to do.
Absolutely need legal advice on that one. I do have a quick question for you. Recently, Charley, a scam that happened. A Salina girl, she was trying to rent a house and doing it out of state, and somebody required her to transfer funds through a wire. When you hear about criminal cases like this, what are the biggest precautions you tell people to take?
Well, you really got to be careful when you do anything like that. I mean, you've got to really watch out what you're doing, especially when people want you to move money to them and you don't know who they are, you don't know all the circumstances. You've really got to be careful. You've got to check things out. I mean, anybody can get conned at any time. If it's a good enough con. I think we all have had something happen to us. But you really need to be careful, and if something doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, you need to take a step back, because people are playing on your emotions usually.
Especially when it comes to money, people asking you for money, any wire transfers like that, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. All right, we do appreciate you being here, Charley. I think his pants are still wet here, Mark, from when he was coming inside. What's it looking like outside right now?